the country's debt burden soars, you need to protect your retirement with the hedging power of gold. Harvard Gold Group is America's #1 gold company focused on helping you secure your future. Call Harvard Gold Group, 844-977-GOLD, or at harvardgoldgroup.com to get a free investment guide to see how you can roll over retirement accounts to a gold-backed IRA. That's harvardgoldgroup.com or 844-977-GOLD.
My employees and I are excited to announce it's our 20th anniversary, and to celebrate, we're bringing you a limited edition MyPillow. The Giza Elegance MyPillow is made with the most amazing cotton, 2-inch pipe gusset, comes in 4 custom loft levels, and it's machine washable and dryable.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. That's why we've been around for 20 years, because MyPillow works.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your limited edition 20th anniversary MyPillow queen size. Retails for $69.98, now only $19.98. That's right, only $19.98.
With my 60-day money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Sleep well, America!
Yes, America, sleep well. Get some MyPillow pillows, get some bath towels, get some beach towels. Save a ton of money. Use promo code TAPP, T-A-P-P, when you do it. Look, MyPillow is a company that is in serious trouble because of efforts from the left to go after them. Why? Mike Lindell made the terrible, horrible, very no good choice to stand by Donald Trump. Support American jobs, support this show, and get yourself some really cool products, because they are indeed really, really good products. I can't say enough good stuff about the stuff I have. I love it. I've got the slippers, I've got towels, got sheets, got the pillow. Love them all. All right. With all that being said, that's enough trying to sell you stuff. Let's bring on today's first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, she is a great American patriot. She has served by wearing the blue uniform when she lived in New York. She has further committed to promoting Tea Party values. In fact, she still is part of one of the few active, organized, honest-to-goodness Tea Parties in the country, as well as the host of Southern Sense Talk Radio. Welcome to the show, Miss Ann Ubellis. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. As always, it is an honor and a pleasure to get to speak with you. Before we jump into anything at all, how are you doing tonight?
I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger.
Well, I don't doubt that a bit. You've got so many irons in the fire. You're certainly dedicated to the fight. And I just love the fact that you're not backing down. You know, you continue to battle, and you continue to serve in one way or another. And that's part of why I'm proud to know you and to be able to call you friend. Before we start tonight's topic, let's go ahead and let everybody know where they can find your work.
All right. The radio show you can find at Southern Sense, as in common sense, southernsense.net. We broadcast live on Fridays from 2:30 to 4. And if you go to that page, you can watch it live. There's a chat room there. Or if you don't want to do that, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, LinkedIn, iSpot. I mean, half a dozen areas. Spotify, iHeart, and iTunes, and I'm about 20, 30 different places. So the easiest way is just go to the name of the show, southernsense.net. One of these days, I'll get all that stuff up on the webpage. I just don't know where I am.
Bottom line is, should be pretty easy to find. And before we also jump in, guys, if you're listening here, if you haven't listened to Southern Sense Talk Radio, you're missing out. It's not one of the best conservative shows. It's one of the best talk shows, period, in a discussion. All right. Annie, I wanted to talk with you tonight about this very strange phenomenon we've got going on, where we have a major party presidential candidate, after another one had actually already received the nomination, by the way, had secured all the votes necessary, had all the delegates going in, was forced out. She basically throws her boss's dead body off to the curb. She becomes the person that's fronting this ticket now. And yet we're past 3 weeks without any press conference, without any real hard questions, or actually the only question I'm aware of she's been asked legitimately is, when is she going to answer some questions? How is the media letting this happen?
They're complicit in the whole thing. One of the talk show hosts, I think it was on CNN just today, had her campaign manager, advisor, whatever on, and was trying to pin them down about doing a press conference. And he goes, it's not hard. All you do is you pick up the phone, you call. We've got the room, we've got the equipment. We can be on site wherever she is within moments, set it up, boom, done. So what's the problem? Oh, we're planning this stop, we're planning that rally. We're going to talk to the people, not to the press, to the people. Okay, fine. But she's talking with a script. A script full of gibberish, but it's a script. What she's saying is, oh yeah, I'm releasing stuff to the press. I don't know if you caught what broke today, that her campaign has been faking news articles and then posting them up on Google, where the search engines will only come up to her advertisements being touted as news items.
Yeah.
So with that, there is a station in North Dakota that is threatening to sue the Harris campaign over the fake headlines.
Yeah, it is astounding, but we both know, and I think most people who've paid any attention at all previously know, they have to do this, right, Annie? She's such an unlikable person. She may be the only person I can think of that can make Hillary Clinton look somewhat tolerable as a human being. She is a total, complete empty suit. Her only skill set doesn't fall within the realm of politics, and she's not capable. You mentioned everything has to be scripted. She's not capable of going off script without going on this strange version of a stream of consciousness that reveals she has no real intelligence. She's a danger to herself if they allow her to start talking, right?
She is. Be interesting to see what happens when they finally do the debate, which I believe is September 10th. And believe it or not, that's just a couple of weeks away. They're supposed to have their convention, which is being scripted and crafted by Steven Spielberg, the producer out of Hollywood. On the first day, Joe Biden should be speaking. They originally were have him on the last day. There's rumors that he might even, with his mental clarity, pun in cheek, say, I'm back, I'm running again, and throw everything on the end. He's got the ego to do that, but whether or not that happens, we'll see. I've been hearing so many rumors that someone in that campaign is going to drop out. And for me, the way it looks, like Tim Walz. I mean, the stuff that is coming forward about him. Once you know the background about him, it's how could he even be considered to be on the ticket? He's left of Bernie Sanders, which makes Kamala Harris look halfway between Bernie Sanders and Tim Walz. I mean, they're a match made in heaven or hell, whichever way you want to look at it. This is a man who, yes, he did serve in the National Guard. I'll give him credit for that. However, when he was put in command of a unit, he was the acting commander, a master sergeant. And when he got word that he was being shipped overseas, he decided it was time for him to retire after 24 years. But if you listen to some of his speeches, it was 25 years. He can't even get that right. The man that replaced him called it stolen valor, because then he claimed to have a rank after his retirement that he did not earn, did not get, was not being paid for. So he's lying about the reason he retired. He's lying about his rank. He turns around and said that he was the right candidate, and yet when you look at it, this is a man that honeymooned in Tiananmen Square on the first anniversary of the massacre. This is a man that went and back and vacationed for the next decade or so at Tiananmen Square. This is a man who taught in the Chinese colleges with the lecture plan, the course material approved by the Communist Chinese government. And then when he said he was living there, he said it was the best place in the earth. He was never treated so well. And when he had to leave, he couldn't bring all the gifts he received back. And yet when he taught, he was still in the National Guard, wore the uniform, and had access to sensitive materials. Did he turn any of that over to the Chinese Communist government? Is he now, instead of the patriot he claims, a traitor? Besides stolen valor? This is a man that let Minneapolis burn and hid for 3 days in the basement. When a police precinct was raided and the officers were told to leave, they couldn't even defend themselves, defend their building. No, that's not what we do. No. And that building has not been built. A lot of buildings that burned during those riots have never been rebuilt. That neighborhood 4 years later is still decimated. This is a man that put tampons in the boys' room, who turned around and made the state a sanctuary state for children to have gender-altering procedures, including surgeries, without the parents' permission. We can go on and on and on why this man is not the man to be the second in command of this nation. Just open the door and say, Chinese, come on in, come invade us. We'll just turn the keys over of the White House to you.
Yeah, one of the things that really surprised me, I don't know how much of my lead-in segment you caught, but the fact that CNN is legitimately reporting now that his campaign, when he was running for Congress, has come forward and is acknowledging that his DUI was lied about multiple times, that the campaign tried hard to cover it up. When you've lost CNN, you've lost a big chunk of what you need moving forward. Other than the fact that evidently Kamala likes him, and I think we know why based on the policies, did they do zero vetting when it comes to this guy?
That's the question. I mean, if this is the quality of the person she picks as vice president, what decisions will she make as president?
Yeah. I mean, it certainly speaks directly to her capability of making a decision. So we have the legacy media trying to facilitate this silence, this ring, this cone of silence, making sure that nobody's asking any tough questions, nobody's upset. If this was the other way around, they would be going nuts. If Donald Trump was just like, I'm not doing anything. In fact, just a few days ago, they actually were complaining they didn't think Donald was campaigning enough. When we're talking about a man that just recently was shot, and he's still having to do a lot of work with his legal troubles everywhere. He's got court cases still in multiple jurisdictions, multiple venues. It's not like he's ignoring the campaign trail. J.D. Vance is also doing a really great job, I think, over the last week and a half, both on media appearances and on the campaign trail. So it's not like they've stepped away, but again, just that level of double standard. They expect more from Trump. They expect nothing from Kamala because we're just supposed to believe this imaginary version of her. And we're not supposed to ask her why she's changed or why she's copying Trump's policy. And if she's even telling the truth when it comes to the no tax on tips, because she's the one who passed the deciding vote that gave power and authority to the Biden-Harris IRS to go after tip wage earners. So is there any truth to this transformation, or is this just say whatever I want to say and hope you're dumb enough to buy it?
It's smoke and mirrors, absolute smoke and mirrors. But the problem with her now is with this electronic age we live in, with this age of information we live in, I'm sorry, folks, let's go to the videotape. Let's see what you said in 2019 compared to what you're saying in 2024. Let's see what acts you did as the deciding vote in Congress, what you voted for, and what you allowed to pass. Just go to the videotape, guys. That's all we have to do. It's out there for anyone and everyone to find, provided that Kamala Harris's team didn't mess up the Google search again.
All right. And with Google obviously being on board, I can't help but wonder how much of this they even have a problem with. It takes outside efforts. And Google just recently was declared a monopoly, and it'll be interesting to see if they're actually forced to be broken up, because that's supposedly one of the things on the table. We haven't seen that since the Bell breakup, and that I would love to see how it plays out, because I think that would reduce the stranglehold that currently big tech uses to silence voices like yours and mine, and a lot of other conservative folks out there. But at the same time, does the DOJ have the will, this administration or even the next? This one, I would almost think it's more fan service, because they've already bullied to a degree. And I don't know how much arm twisting was involved with Meta and Google, because there's no question the people that run those companies, they're on board. They wanted to help. They were concerned they might be held accountable later. They were concerned they might be the fall guy if the government got caught and somebody had to have their wrist smacked or worse. Uh, do you see anything improving communication wise, other than people like yourself and me out here having to still be online bandits, just looking for a place like here on Rumble where there's still free speech advocates, at least until the UK comes over and tries to stop all of us?
Well, I think we're starting to make some headway. People are starting to realize that we are telling the truth out here. The wokeness, I think, has finally got to people and said, wait a minute, you're going to tell me I can't make a decision about my child's future and health. You're telling me what I can and cannot do. And if I mispronounce someone's pronoun, if I give the wrong pronoun, I can be arrested. I think they're seeing that we are no longer a nation of law. We are a nation of lawyers. When they see what's going on with the legal problems with Donald Trump, when they see what's going on with the J6ers, when they see towns and cities being destroyed by rioters and no one gets arrested, but heaven forbid you're a church during the COVID outbreak that does social distancing, gathers in an open area to have a mass, and still finds the pastor arrested because he had the gathering. When you see simple people like you and me finding that the law is being used against us, that's when you see the heart of America begin to awaken. When you see the numbers of minorities, blacks and Hispanics, who are quietly saying, I don't care if the rest of my family is voting Democrat, I see the light, I'm voting for Donald Trump. When you see the heart of New York City, Bronx and Brooklyn, the neighborhoods there finally saying, no, we're voting for Donald Trump. When he can hold a rally in the Bronx and have a record crowd, you see the heart of America waking up. It's taken you and I a lot of years, a lot of preaching, but people are now starting to listen. When you have CNN starting to question, it's the heart of America.
Yeah. Well, it certainly feels like it's long overdue. But yeah, I was talking to some other folks just the other day, and what is astounding to me still, and that's part of why we do what we do here, and trying to make sure that we reach people that wouldn't ordinarily hear us, and that's because there are so many folks out there that have tuned out completely. I mean, they're not even counting on TikTok or MSNBC for news. They just don't want to hear it, and yet they still show up to go vote. It's dangerous that these people want to follow celebrity. They want to follow the hip or cool, or what are my friends doing, or what would be goth, or want to believe things like the flat out lies that Donald Trump's going to try to pass a nationwide abortion ban. Now, from your lips there, you misinformed little child, to God's ear, because the continuing murder of preborn baby humans is abhorrent. But that's not part of the agenda. Donald Trump very wisely took that plank out for the purposes of campaigning. It took one issue away from the Democrats that actually seems to motivate their base. How would you rate currently the Trump campaign this go around as compared to its previous campaigns?
Well, this is something that Peter Navarro and I discussed on the show two shows ago, and we both said the same thing. Trump needs to campaign on policy, on what he has done and his policy. Um, we say let's step away from some of the attacks like he did on Brian Kemp. He's a governor that's very loved in Georgia, and it rankled a lot of people that are pro-Trumpers. If you don't go after your allies, go after your foes, and that he did today in a news press. He did in New Jersey. I mean, he was there. I mean, I walked in. He must have been halfway through. I didn't even know he was on air, and he was there for another 30 minutes after I was there, just taking questions shouted at him from inside the press corps. If he sticks to something like that, and if he sticks to his rallies, but his rallies have to be more policy centered. He had a lot of celebrities at the last one. Ease up on the celebrities, ease up on what you're going to do and people you're going to be working for. You've got someone that's campaigning for Senate, let them come up and have their spiel and show that it's a candidate that you're going to back and that the people should then back also. Do things like that. These are all things that we were discussing. And what I saw in the news press, he kind of stuck to that. He went after Kamala Harris. He went after the judge that still has the gag order on him. He went after the ones that are going after him for those lawsuits. He stuck to policy. He stuck to what's going on with him, and he stuck to what he's done. And that's what I think the people need to hear. And the truth has to get out there. And when they say, well, you want to ban abortion all across the United States, he goes, no, I followed the Constitution. This is a state issue. Yes, it is a moral issue, but that's a different fight. You have to win the hearts and minds of people. There's always going to be someone out there that's going to, look for an abortion. That's their personal problem, but we don't have to have the federal government giving funds to hospitals and things to perform it. You just simply say the federal government cannot support this. It is a moral issue. We stand by the moral rights of the people, but it is a state issue. If the state wants to fund it, that's the state voters' business. They're the voice of the people. The people have to decide that, not the federal government. And there's so much more that can be done. The reduction of government, the reduction of taxes, the reduction of regulations. All these things are what we want to hear. Stick with that. Stick with the border. Stick with China. Stick what's going on in Ukraine and Israel and Russia and Iran. Stick talking about our enemies and getting our nation's honor and power and dignity back. But also push for the rule of law. Because what we have now is a bunch of broke and woke lawyers that decide that they can interpret what a law is and who not to apply it to. No, that's not the founding. We're here for the justice of all, no matter race, color, creed, gender. So the law must be applied across the board. We did not see that with his New York case. We did not see it with the rioters that burnt down Chicago and Minneapolis and many other cities and towns. We didn't see the equal application of stores being robbed to the point where they're closing chains of CVS's and Walgreens and other stores because they can't take the losses anymore. Now, stick to the rule of law and say, well, we're going to turn around to the colleges and get law taught the way it should be upon the founding principles of this nation, going back to the Book of Common Law of England, through our Declaration of Independence, the Mayflower Compact, the Magna Carta, and so forth. And the law is the law, and you don't have a choice on whether or not to apply it here or there. It's not a political tool.
I noticed you didn't mention the 1618 project.
Funny man.
Well, a little humor helps too. If we don't laugh a little bit, we'd lose our mind. I already feel like I pulled most of my hair out when we look at these things. The constant effort to keep us separated is really what has allowed the political left to be as successful as they have been. They've managed to take control of a lot of the media. They use it to do social engineering now. And, they bombard young kids with all these images. And again, that's what takes us into what makes people like Tampon Tim Walz such a dangerous person to be one heartbeat away. Because when it comes to Kamala Iyer, who knows when she's going to step off of a curb and something. And again, I'm not asking for anything bad to happen to any of them. I know somebody's going to try to twist it, but we know that she's not the brightest crayon in the box. And if something was to happen, is this the guy we want taking over? Clearly not. But we still live in a culture where, because conservatives have stayed back for far too long, we've ceded the culture war because we typically thought we had more important things to go do. It's put us in a situation where we're having to play catch up. And again, that's kind of the fight you've been in and that you're doing. You're out there fighting that battle. And we have to continue to remember that most of the people that have been indoctrinated are victims too. And that's part of where a lot of conservative voices have trouble reaching, in particular, younger people, because we see a lot of folks that just start bomb throwing, and they don't put any thought into the fact that there are a lot of these young folks that if we take a few minutes to just talk to them, we could probably change their mind on a lot of issues. Certainly not all of them, but enough that they would do that awakening that you've been talking about. Because a lot of the awakening that we've seen to this point, I tend to think, are folks that have already spent several years voting Democrat and have started to realize that things only continue to get worse the more they vote for these people and put them in positions. And yet things seem to get better when the other folks are in charge, at least the ones that get a chance to see both. What do we need to keep in mind as far as what you think as commentators when we're still trying to reach out and convert some of these hearts and minds?
We as a nation, we're a melting pot. We've allowed the left to cause division. We've got to break down those walls and remind people that we're still all flesh and blood, no matter what. And we can sit down and have a conversation without yelling and shouting and cursing each other out. If someone's going to do that to you while you're trying to talk to them, simply walk away, because you're never going to turn their mind. If someone's willing to sit down, just remind them how much we are the same loves, the same interests. We bleed, we laugh, we cry, we make love, we make spaghetti. But we can start to find common areas in which to start the conversation, like we used to. We used to get together for Thanksgiving. There was always crazy Uncle Harry who's going to say something silly or be on the other side of the political spectrum. But hey, you put up with him, you love him because he's family, and then when he's gone, he's gone. But you have to find that common ground. I was sitting next to someone I knew to be liberal, and we were sitting having cocktails, looking at the TV, and he saw something and he made a comment. And I looked at him and I said, "You see, we can agree on something. I agree with you on that." And he looked shocked. I said, "We can have a conversation. We can sit down and have a drink or a cup of coffee together and agree on some things, and other things disagree. But we're not going to find that common ground until we start the conversation." And that starts at home. That starts in the schools. If we allow open debate, again, we must demand the school boards to allow opposing opinions, allow prayer books in schools, allow a child sitting down to eat to say a blessing over his or her meal, allow a religious club to meet if you're going to allow some other sorority or something to meet. Allow the conversation to start small in small places, and then it will grow across the nation. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But maybe someone listening to our voices today will say, "Hey, wait a minute. Maybe I can sit down and have a conversation." You're always going to have that one family member you're going to have to block. And I've had it in my family. And I know it hurts. It really hurts. But all we can do is keep on loving them and find a way to break through to that communication. Find that common ground and build upon it.
Right. All right. As we are starting to run out of time, a couple of quick rapid fire questions, Annie. Will Kamala give a full press conference before early voting starts?
Depending upon what state, uh, yeah, well, it depends upon what state. If before election day, I think she's going to be forced to. If she does not drop out of the race, she stays in. She will have to at one point do it because so many people are starting to call for that to happen on both sides of the aisle, not just now the conservatives, Republicans. People on the left are saying, wait a minute, why isn't she talking? Why doesn't she answer questions from the press? We want to hear the answers. What are her policies? Can anyone name them except for the ones she just parroted from Donald Trump? We know what she stood for when she was running for president, what she claimed, Medicare for all, universal health care. Um, what were some of the other things? I forget now.
An
I
end of fracking, continue to decriminalize illegal border crossing. Basically, if it's super progressive, she was for it.
Yeah. And now suddenly she's trying to sound more like, the female Donald Trump. That's not going to work. Once she starts laughing, everyone's going to go, oh, geez, she's back.
Right? Tackling Kamala. Okay, so if she is forced to withdraw, or if they decide to make a change on the VP pick, who is the most likely people to possibly fall into either one of those categories? Because they like to pretend they talk big talk that they've got deep benches, but probably their most dangerous person they have available is Josh Shapiro. And the Democratic Party right now seems afraid to pick a Jew because the Hamas crowd is going to show up. But I got bad news for them. They're going to show up anyway. They've already proven that at the fundraisers she's been going to. So,
which is giving us the Jewish vote. Thank you, giving us the Jewish vote. But the strongest person I do believe would probably be Gavin Newsom. Governor Whitmore already said no, she's not interested. Gavin Newsom, number one, he's young, he's attractive, he's charismatic, and California keeps voting him in, and the left loves him. The people that left California don't, but it also is a stepping stone for him to run for president on his own. Yeah. And he is hungry for it. If anyone, it would be Gavin Newsom. I'm surprised she did not pick him to begin with. She wouldn't have the controversy she has now with Tim Walz.
Yeah. Well, I do think there's kind of this unwritten rule too, though. You want to pick somebody as your VP that doesn't run a high risk of upstaging you when you're supposed to be the top of the ticket. Given the connections to the Pelosi political machine, I don't see any way that Gavin doesn't upstage Kamala. But, you also have that thing where they still technically are both from California. That causes some constitution. I don't think either one of them want to give up the California electoral vote.
It's not constitutional. It is electoral college. So all he has to do, one of them, simply change their state of residence. This is what happened with Dick Cheney and Bush. So before the convention, just the day before, Cheney moved to Wyoming. And that made the electoral college able to vote for both of them. Otherwise, the electoral college can either vote for the president or vice president if they're from the same state. They can still run together, but the college cannot vote for both of them. So it's not constitutional. It's electoral college rules.
Right. And it comes down to neither one of them wanting to give up the electoral tally from California. But it seems like if, in the case of Dick Cheney, he had connections to the state. He had residence. He had lived there previously. He had held office there. So it was difficult to challenge a change of residency. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to make the challenge and possibly win in court? That it was, because you can't just do it as a matter of convenience, is my understanding. Or is that just off base?
Oh, does she have a second place of residence? That's the question. I don't know if she does. That's something for one of us should be looking into. Does she have another place of residence in which she can do that? She's known to have very luxurious tastes and lifestyle. And she does 92% of her staff has quit. That's her turnover rate, 92%. So I'm sure she's got something hidden somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, when you make Senator Klobuchar look like an amateur running off staff, you're pretty good at it. All right, Annie. We are quickly running out of time. So at this point, any final thoughts you want to share before we say our goodbyes?
Just one thought. Just remember that Trump's Secret Service staff is still being controlled by the Biden administration. And at the rally yesterday, a Secret Service agent was doing a final walkthrough just before the rally. Another Secret Service agent was in a room with her baby, breastfeeding. She was off post with an infant child at her duty station, breastfeeding that child. The persons that led her into the room were called unpinned. In other words, they were not cleared by the Secret Service to be in that location. So you have a Secret Service agent off her post with an infant child, a vulnerable child, while you're on duty breastfeeding, and put over there by two people who should never have been in that area. What else has slipped through? Be careful, folks, because I am predicting there will be a second attempt on President Trump, and may God still be with him, and may he be all right and be our next president.
All right. Well said at the end, and certainly something that we've been talking about a lot on my show as well. There is a vested interest by a certain group of people to do whatever is necessary to stop Donald Trump from retaking office, because he currently represents the only real threat to their base of power. Heaven help America if all of her citizens remember who's actually supposed to be in charge. Thank you so much, as always, Annie. I love talking to you. Gonna have to have you back sometime real soon as things continue to heat up. Love having the conversations with you. And in the meanwhile, remind everybody one more time where they can find your show.
It's very simple. It's the name of the show, Southern Sense, as in common sense, southernsense.net. If you still have the old link, which is southern-sense.com, that also still works too.
All right. God bless to you, ma'am. Keep up all the great work. You know I love you, and we'll definitely talk again soon. God bless.
Well, God bless too. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was, of course, Miss Ann Ubellis. And again, seriously, if for some reason you're coming across this show here because you just happen to hang out on Rumble and you've never listened to Ann Ubellis and Southern Sense Talk Radio, please, you will kick yourself that you haven't already done it. It's just that simple. Now, here in just a few moments, we're going to be joined by the host of Firefox News Online, Mr. Jordan Stenzer, a podcast that has lived through multiple iterations. It has existed for a long time, kind of like my show, only instead of changing formats and profiles, I've just kind of evolved a long time and been audio only for a very long time. And I'm not going away from audio only. I'm supplementing with the video, seeing how it goes. It's ultimately up to you guys if it becomes a permanent change. And if you guys react and support and show up here, then I will greatly appreciate it, of course. But we've had a lot of success with the audio version. And I would also like to remind everybody, if you're seeing this for the first time and you haven't ever heard the audio version, we do a live show on Fridays that you can hear on the K-Star Talk Radio Network. You can hear it on ZMA Radio. You can hear it on Liberty Talk FM, and of course on the Vera networks. Those are easy enough to find. They all have a huge digital footprint, and it goes beyond that. I'm very grateful to be part of those broadcast families. So I highly recommend you check it out. I usually have 3 to 4 guests on for those Friday night shows. So not a whole lot of me going off and going on about things. Usually it's just a whole lot of me talking to the guest and the guest doing most of the talking. Usually I kind of think people prefer that. I had been doing a Sunday show as well, but that is coming here. That's going to be moving forward. The Sunday show is going to be 3 p.m. Eastern right here on Rumble. As far as anything further, I still do the Tuesday audio show, although I didn't actually get to do this week's Tuesday show. You can find it almost anywhere that you listen to podcasts, whether you want to listen to iHeartRadio or whether you want to spend some time listening on Spotify, or even if you go to Spreaker. And I would love for you to go to Spreaker, because if you go to Spreaker, guess what? I get double the ad revenue. And that way you hear a couple of ads. Yeah, it's worthwhile for you, but it really helps me. And you're not out anything. You're not having to spend money or buy something you don't want to buy. It's fantastic. So anyway, with that being said, I'm looking at the clock. We are past the 9 o'clock benchmark. And rather than do anything, we'll just take another break at about the halfway point. So I'm going to bring on my next guest for the evening. As I mentioned before, you can find his show right here on Rumble. And he does a very good podcast. It has evolved over time. In fact, I'll probably start off asking him to explain that to you before we start talking about any of tonight's topics. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the host of Firefox News Online, and my friend, George Stenzer. George, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. I greatly appreciate you joining us. Love the shirt you're rocking too, by the way. That is so pro-American, digging every bit of it. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Well, I'm doing okay so far. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, hear you fine.
Okay. So far so good. Had a wee bout, but I got over it.
A wee bout of shore leave, sir?
No. A wee bout of battling liberals all day. And I came out the winner, I might add. They came out with their heads tucked between their tails and going, "That guy's crazy."
Well, I feel bad for them if they didn't take the time to figure that out first, and they paid for it. All right, George. Obviously, you kind of joined right about now. I don't know if you've been watching the show previous. I know you were thinking about it, but Ann and I were discussing some of this absurdity of what is the Kamala Harris campaign. And the one thing that I have really found is that while most of us tend to agree with a lot of what's going on as far as why they're doing it, why they have to do it, why they're in on it together, I still occasionally find somebody has an interesting, slightly different take, and that's almost always worthwhile. So I want to start there, but before we do that, I kind of teased a minute ago to anybody that might be watching or listening that I wanted you to talk about the evolution of your show and how you went from an audio podcast, much like what I continue to do on one side, to becoming this massive superstar here on Rumble.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but it's a work in progress, as I keep pointing out. I started the podcast on Blog Talk Radio. At the time, I was caring for my mother, who had Alzheimer's, and just like I did when I was in the State Guard, I programmed my mind and body to be a light sleeper. Well, I'd be up late at night and I couldn't sleep, so I just decided to look into broadcasting again because I used to do public access. I found Blog Talk Radio, so I immediately came up with the idea, okay, I need a logo. I need a name. Well, at the time, I was using the Mozilla Firefox browser, and I was using I was watching Fox News at the time, and I was always online. So it came up with, I came up with the idea, okay, Firefox News online, and it stuck. And it started out rather curiously. I used to get a lot of callers on Blog Talk Radio. Sometimes I got troll attacks, and that was not pleasant. And in the early days, I got to tell you, my temperament was not exactly stellar. I can safely say I used to blow my stack on the air. Not a good thing. So what I basically resolved myself to is, okay, with all the problems that Blog Talk Radio had started having at the time, I needed somewhere else to go. So I found a London-based internet radio site called Mixler, and I went over there and I would do the show over there. Then the same thing followed me. Trolls. Trust me, if you've ever done a podcast, folks, you'll know what I mean when I say trolls are a pain in the you-know-where. Well, I decided to simulcast my my podcast on video. So I started at YouTube. Big mistake. I went to YouTube, and not long after being there, someone decided to hit me with a copyright infringement. But guess what? It was over my own content, my stuff. And it's like, are you kidding me? What did you drop in from planet Pluto or something? Bizarro World? They put me in YouTube jail for 3 months for it. So
Wow.
I said, see ya. Then I went over to when Twitter was run by Dorsey. They had a thing called Periscope. And I went over there for a while. And it worked out okay until Twitter decided to end Periscope and have it strictly on the platform. And I said, oh, heck no, I am not doing that, because at the time, Twitter was not a conservative's friend, much like YouTube. Then I tried Twitch, DLive, Trovo. All of those are gaming video sites, which really didn't pan out for me either. And then I found Rumble. And I started shying away from the internet radio side because of all the insanity with the trolls, and I started putting the podcast on Rumble. And I've been here ever since on Rumble, and the funny thing about it, Tim, is that whenever I tell people about the evolution of Firefox News online, I always start with, you see that spinning logo right there? Originally, it was just a blue square with the stencil font on the angle. That was the original logo. Then I found a royalty-free image. Basically, it was from a Christmas card. And incorporated that as the background. And about a month ago, I kind of tweaked it a little bit so that it was more squared, more uniform. And then I found a place where I could get a rotating cube like this, which I've wanted for years on video, to make it look more professional, even though I'm not a professional, folks. And the evolution just keeps, this podcast of mine just keeps evolving. It's not going to stop. It's not going to end. There's only one way this podcast of mine is going to end once and for all. And that's when I'm 6 feet down and 10 toes up, which I hope will be till I'm 99.99999 and a half years old. And if you figure out why I say the half years old, please keep it to yourself. I don't want to know. I don't think I even know.
It does seem an oddly specific time.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
It does. I think anybody who's been doing any form of broadcasting for more than 3 years has seen their shows change over time. And I think it's important to note that it's important, if you want to keep growing your show, that you're able to kind of go where the people are, but there's still certain lines I won't cross. Where is the most popular video content right now? It's on TikTok. Could
Yeah.
we be huge on TikTok? They're surprised. There are conservative listeners on TikTok, but I won't cross the line. I will not help China spy on me any more than Google is already spying on me. So I'm just not going to
Exactly.
do it.
Yeah,
But
and you will never find me on TikTok. I'll tell you that right now, because the day you see me on TikTok, somebody is impersonating me, and that just ain't going to happen.
the great deep fake.
Yes.
All right. Let's dive into some issues at this point. I started off talking about Tampon Tim Walls and the fact that, much to my surprise, at this point, CNN actually reported that his campaign had been lying about his DUI. So I'm wondering now, is the media finally starting to get a little miffed that Kamala's been playing keep away with her campaign when it comes to spending some time with them? Because what is usually the risk of going to a friendly place? I mean, nobody expects her to do what Donald Trump's been doing and going to sit down interviews other than over at X. I mean, that was a nice, friendly place for him to be. It almost got a little boring at times, but again, that's because they were delving into issues and they got into the weeds. And that's the kind of boring that is good for American politics, because it means they not only know what they're talking about, but they're prepared to back up what they're saying. Nobody expects that from Kamala. She barely knows what she had for breakfast in the morning, and she certainly doesn't remember what her uh, what her stands and policies were before when she ran for president. In fact, it's amazing that the legacy media wants to pretend like it never even happened. We all, conservatives, we imagine that. We imagine she was the border czar. We imagine she's against fracking. We imagine she's against Medicare for all, in fact, including illegal migrants who've crossed our southern border, which from all parts of the world that are probably a good number here to kill us. We all imagine that. None of that's real. Kamala's just a joyful person. Oh, so full of joy, dancing around. Literally just fell out of the coconut tree herself, evidently. That's how she knows that somebody else didn't. Do you think that the media maybe is finally starting to resent a little bit that they're not even being given an opportunity to have a friendly sit down where they can play patty cakes and help pull her and drag her across the finish line?
Well, I think what's happening with the legacy media, Tim, is they're starting to realize that their ratings are dropping down the toilet faster than Joe Biden's diapers. I mean, let's face the reality here. A couple of nights ago, over the last couple of nights on my podcast, I shared two CNN interviews. One was John Brennan. I keep calling him John Brennan. It's John Berman. Ah, what? I guess there's no telling the difference, really. He was interviewing this. I don't even remember what her name is. But I referred to her as the fembot of the Kamala Harris campaign. Okay, because basically she was dodging, but Berman wasn't having any of that. He actually pressed her on when is Kamala going to do interviews, when is she going to have press conferences, and so forth. And I've often said on my podcast, if doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, you do the right thing, I'm going to let you know. I'm going to let people know about it. You do something stupid, I'm going to let people know about it. Keywords, I'm going to let people know about it. Well, I actually, for the first time, and I can't believe I'm repeating this on your show, I actually turned around and said that he finally woke up from his deep sleep kind of thing. He just basically woke up. He realized it's time to ask the tough questions. It's time to press, because people are noticing that she's not doing press conferences. All those teleprompter speeches are the same exact speech every time. And going to rallies and doing rallies is not going to cut the mustard. And the American people know this. Then last night, I showed the arch enemy of President Trump, the man who actually blocked a woman from taking the microphone from him, Jim Acosta. And he literally shocked the living daylights out of me. He pressed another guy, another person. Basically, I'll refer to him as the Borg of the Harris campaign. And he was pressing about interviews and news conferences and so forth. When are we going to see that? And he didn't let up. He actually pressed this guy pretty hard. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. So when it comes right down to it, yes, are they waking up? Gradually. Do they need to really wake up and start realizing that originally when CNN was formed in 1980, it was a news organization and a legitimate one? Now it's become a joke. Those letters, I often say to people, it stands for the Clinton News Network, the Constipated News Network, the Corrupt News Network, and so forth. And MSNBC's no better. Chris Salcedo over at Newsmax gives it the letters MSNBS. They need to start waking up. The one person that really drove me nuts was Dana Bash when she interviewed J.D. Vance. The woman absolutely was trying to direct the narrative to try to trick him into answering it the way she wanted it answered. But J.D. Vance was not having any of that. Now imagine, if you will, Tampon Tim or Kamala Harris going on CNN or MSNBC, and they'd be treated like king and queen. They would get softball question after softball question, and it would be just business as usual. So as much as I liked what I saw with Acosta and Berman or Vernon or whatever the frig his name is, the bottom line is two guys waking up a little bit, that doesn't mean very much, because they'll go right back to doing what they always do. Because I guarantee after they got off the air, their bosses were all over them like stink on crap, and literally giving them the third degree and saying, look, if this is the way you're going to do interviews, look for work elsewhere.
I wonder if that's the case, though, because as we both know, this isn't about them being mad at the Harris-Walz campaign. This is about them being angry that the campaign hasn't been better to them. It's hard to imagine that the head folks over at CNN is going to be terribly upset because a certain member of their crew got after them about, hey, when are you going to come on our network? When are you going to come on our network? Because again, they're not having this conversation with Tampon Tim. They're not having this conversation with Kamala. They're having this campaign. They're having this conversation with campaign surrogates on their behalf. And it would be appropriate for them because they know it's like, hey, we're your friends. We're already carrying the water for you. And as soon as they get their way, it's going to be about massaging Kamala's shoulders and, oh, yes, you're just so wonderful and so awesome, and we're so glad you're going to be the next president. You're going to be the first female president. You're going to be the first Asian president. You're going to be, oh, it's so historic. And they'll continue to lie. They'll talk about how far behind Trump is in every poll, which we need to talk about the polls here in a little bit, because they're really, despite this ridiculous honeymoon phase that seems to be ongoing, Kamala's bringing back the Democratic base to the party. They're walking away from the potential of not showing up or not voting at all or going to vote for a third party. Now, realistically, it's the Trump campaign that's being more damaged and hindered by third-party candidates because they feel like they can come home to Kamala. There's that excitement, and most of them still really don't know anything about Kamala other than that one time she called Joe Biden a racist on stage and talks about how she loves Venn diagrams and big yellow school buses. That's really about all they know, unless you happen to be from California, and then you're all like, well, yeah, she's about sanctuary cities, and she's about stealing, and I say stealing on purpose, all the evidence collected that would have worked against Planned Parenthood for their illegal trafficking of the unborn baby humans, the preborn baby humans that were being sacrificed and then sold as tissue. Illegal, not just federally, but also in the state of California. A law they've chosen not to enforce in a while, but still on the books as being illegal. She, as the top guy, that tough on crime prosecutor, all of this is such a ridiculous situation that we know, again, why they have to cover. They can't let anybody get to know who this woman is, because the more they're reminded, the more they know they don't like her. The more they know that Donald Trump is a much better option, even if they don't like the mean tweets, even if they don't like his imprecise communication. Maybe they don't even like the nicknames. But do they like living in safety? Do they like living in an economy that doesn't continue to go south? Do they like living in a world where they don't have to worry about some Chinese national walking up to them on the street and blowing their child's head off? That is the world. That's the difference, and that's what needs to happen. But those polls, George, she's within the margin of error in almost every one of them. Donald Trump should be falling way behind based on the supposed excitement they have, but he's within the margin of error in every swing state. What does that signify to you?
Well, during the 2016 presidential race, I said on my podcast at the time to ignore the polls because they had Hillary beating him, and by within the margin of error and everything else. And I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. There's something wrong with this picture. These polls aren't telling the truth. And if you look at some of the polls at the time, you had Marist College polls, CBS News poll, Washington Post news polls, ABC News polls, okay, that were all saying that Hillary was beating Trump in the numbers. But look at all of those outlets that I just mentioned. I live near Marist College, okay? It's a liberal college, period. All right? CBS, ABC, all of them lean left. So they're going to skew the numbers. They're not going to admit to it, but they're going to skew the numbers. And what really what people need to realize, and what I hope that the American people will see, is that when I say ignore the poll numbers, look at the candidates. Look at what they're doing. Right now, Kamala Harris is, okay, she had a rally where she had entertainers come out first, okay? And all the people went there for was the entertainment. 15 minutes after she started talking, people started walking. So do the polls really mean anything to me? No. Because at the end of the day, Trump beat Hillary Clinton in 2016 and beat her royal, okay? And her base knew it. When she conceded, I sat back and I went, thank you, God. Finally, she woke up and realized she wasn't going to win this thing. But even the polls during 2020 were askew. And it made no sense. But of course, we know what happened with the 2020 election. I've got on my channel, if people go to my channel and go to the last page, it's going to take a little time to cycle through all of it, but It's worth it. Look for the 4-panel security video from Georgia at the time, and then advance the time index a little bit till you see a table with a black cloth over it and people pulling suitcases on wheels out from under it. What's in those suitcases? Ballots. And where were the Republican poll watchers? Going home, because they were told at 10:30, we're wrapping up, we're going home. And all the Republican poll watchers left, and the bean counters for the polls, for the ballots, stayed and counted ballots. So if anybody sits there and tries to convince me that the 2020 wasn't rigged, that it wasn't stolen, I got sad news for you. I know better.
Yeah.
Okay. And the polls are garbage, because I've seen some of the latest polls, and what, 49 to 47 for Kamala? Yeah, right. I think they got the numbers backwards.
I know a lot of the most recent polls, the ones that were out and released today over the last couple of days, they're kind of all over the place. There's a few of them that still have Trump up 2 to 5 points, depending on which one. And then there's several that have Kamala up, but mostly by 2 to 4 points. There's one that has her up by 5, and there might be another one that actually says 8, but it's historically been the least accurate poll as far as polling data collected in the history of polling. Okay, slight exaggeration.
When the debate happens, watch what happens with the numbers then, because I guarantee as soon as she opens her mouth unscripted, we're going to see the cackling hen, the word salad, and it's all going to be downhill from there.
Do you really think she's going to do this unscripted? Because while she's agreed to the agreed upon debate, I've never heard her actually say she's agreed upon the same conditions that had been agreed upon. I have a hard time believing that even if she pretends like she's going to go unscripted, that she will. I think they're going to find some way to cheat. And I think this time, for sure, they're going to be cutting Donald Trump's microphone off almost every answer. They're not going to want him to be answering questions. But I can't imagine her being unscripted at all, because she can't go 30 seconds unscripted without saying something really dumb.
Well, look, if we go back to the Biden-Trump debate and look at what happened there, there were no notes on there. I can talk. It's not easy, but I can. Neither candidate had any notes in front of them. They weren't allowed any kind of heads up on the questions. Nothing.
Right.
And that's what torpedoed Biden in the right then and there. Now, looking at, I believe it's September 10th, they're going to have this debate.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, let me issue a spoiler. Yes, folks, I am going to give a spoiler. This is going to be a tap into the truth first from yours truly. Come that debate, if she comes out with anything in her hands that looks like papers, I expect Donald Trump to speak up and say, why is she coming out with papers and I'm not allowed to have any of my own? At that point, if I were Donald Trump, I would take the gloves off and do to her what he did to Hillary, only a lot worse.
Oh, see, I'm going to circle back. I honestly think mediators of the debate, the legacy media, they were all already on board with removing Joe from the ticket before the debate. That's part of why they wanted the debate. That's why they wanted it early. They wanted time to play this game, but they also wanted to be in this position where they are right now, where whoever they selected, and I don't think any of them had planned on Kamala being the person that ended up getting that nod, But whoever they selected, they knew they could keep out of the public eye until some folks had already started early voting, and we're going to be there almost right there for it. Early voting in most states will have started by the time we have the VP debate. Um, it seems to me like they have finally circled the wagons. They're like, not real sure 100% that this was our best foot forward, but they've taken such an extreme stance. I don't think they can offer their best option. I don't think there is a better option in the Democratic Party than Josh Shapiro, but they can't run him. They've embraced the pro-Hamas side of things, and they're basically abusing the Jewish support group that falls within the Democratic Party. And why there's any that's remaining at this point, I don't understand. But it still circles back around to the fact that they are a machine. They get into lockstep. When they circle the wagons, it's ride or die for them. That's always been the advantage politically they've had over the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is made up of a lot of different factions, and we're not all ride or die. Some of us are ready to stand on every principle, and we're prepared to make the perfect the enemy of the good. And some of us are just like, well, I like running my business, and that's why I'm a Republican. Half the people that claim the mantle of Republican are really just conservative, or they're just constitutionalist, or they're just Christian and may not be all that conservative per se, but they all fall under this blanket. And very rarely do we have a major collective where we're just all meshing in lockstep, because unfortunately we're also people of reason. And so if we see something that was bad, kind of like what you said earlier, it's like, if you do something bad, we're going to call you out for it. And it should be that way. But they've circled the wagons. They're ready. They're ride or die for Kamala. What do we expect to see besides them trying to find a way for her to cheat? Because again, she goes off script in front of all of America. They're sunk. I don't think the Democrats are ready to give up the race, given where the polls have went. And we know they believe in polls, whether we do or not.
Well, Tim, let's bear in mind also that a lot of Democrats are riding. A lot of Democrats that are running for the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives are riding on beating Trump. A lot of these Democrats are riding on beating him, and they're willing to, and they're not making any secret of it. Jamie Raskin recently said that come January 6, 2025, they're ready to have him disqualified, to not accept, not to certify the election. And I'll tell you something, if that actually happens, Jamie Raskin said that we're going to have to double up on security and literally do that, because the ravaging horde of MAGA extremists will be pounding on our door and all this. They're already planning for something to happen. They're already putting the feeler out there for something to happen. But here's where something, I don't know if you had heard about this or not, but the World Health Organization, the pro-China organization, just yesterday put out an emergency situation. Yeah, because of monkeypox.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it cannot be transmitted except through touch, through what have you. The thing is, to the Democrats, the Democrats are not going to care about that. My concern is they're going to take that, have the CDC run with that, and I've got a gut feeling they may try to use that to shut our country down again ahead of the 2024 election. If that happens, you're going to have people hitting the streets screaming and carrying tiki torches and pitchforks and whatever else they can get their hands on, because they're not going to put up with that kind of garbage. But again, it goes right back to what I've always said. The Democrats are willing to try to win by any means necessary because they want their power back. They want control of everything. And that's what the scariest thing of all is. I mean, we've got Russian Navy ships over in Cuba. We've had Russian planes and Chinese planes flying at the international boundary line outside of Alaska. We've got Democrats that are like Jamie Raskin talking about being prepared for January 6, 2025, for the MAGA horde. And now the World Health Organization comes out with this. Just very convenient that it comes out months before the election. So there's a lot to keep an eye out on.
All right. Let's take a little bit of a break, George, and then when we come back, we'll slide into our next topic. Assuming that you want to hang out for the rest of the hour, I guess I should have asked you if you wanted to, rather than just assume.
Let me say it right now, and your audience will be my witness. I am here for the duration. You can be on as long for another 2 hours, and I'll sit right here with you. I don't have a problem with that. You know why? Because, folks, I had this guy on my show, and we were on for 5 hours.
Yeah, it was so much fun though, George. It only felt like 2, and 2 hours to me is nothing. I loved it. All right, stay where you're at then, sir. Gonna take a little bit of a break, and then when we come back, we're gonna just jump right back into things. So let's see if we can pay a bill or two, and then maybe have a stark reminder as to why you should never vote for a Democrat. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Since 2000, your dollar has declined 40% in purchasing power, while gold is up 700%. As the country's debt burden soars, you need to protect your retirement with the hedging power of gold. Harvard Gold Group is America's #1 gold company focused on helping you secure your future. Call Harvard Gold Group, 844-977-GOLD, or at harvardgoldgroup.com to get a free investment guide to see how you can roll over retirement accounts to a gold-backed IRA. That's harvardgoldgroup.com or 844-977-GOLD.
Hello, America. This is Tim Tapp on behalf of the Tap Into the Truth Voter Apathy Project. Are you someone that believes that the Obama administration was the most transparent presidential administration in history with 0 scandals? Do you believe that Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump in 2016 because of misogyny? Then you have what it takes to be part of the Voter Apathy Project. You've already demonstrated that you don't care enough to learn about the IRS targeting of Tea Party groups, a little thing called Benghazi, a matter of 30,000 plus missing emails sent to a private server, or Fast and Furious. And I mean the gun running to Mexican drug cartels, not the movie franchise. Yes, that's right. If you don't care enough to learn about small details like these, then maybe you should just stay home on Election Day. Because if you don't care enough to tap into the truth, then you should just stay home. This has been Tim Tapp for the Tap Into the Truth Voter Apathy Project.
My employees and I are excited to announce it's our 20th anniversary, and to celebrate, we're bringing you a limited edition MyPillow. The Giza Elegance MyPillow is made with the most amazing cotton, 2-inch pipe gusset, comes in 4 custom loft levels, and it's machine washable and dryable.
When I got my pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. That's why we've been around for 20 years, because MyPillow works.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your limited edition 20th anniversary MyPillow queen size. Retails for $69.98, now only $19.98. That's right, only $19.98.
With my 60-day money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose. Sleep well, America!
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men and women are created equal.
We don't just say it, we live it.
We organize, legislate, and govern it.
Together, we work for fair wages and equal pay.
So we can get a good education for ourselves and give one to our children. For affordable health care for our families and a clean planet for the next generation.
So we can decide what's best for our own bodies.
And marry the person we love.
For those battles we haven't won yet, we will keep fighting.
Sometimes that means sitting so that others can stand up.
Listening so that others can be heard.
Or lending a hand so others can pull themselves up.
Because we know that behind balanced budgets, New Deals, and multi-point plans
are people.
People who are trying to do good, to get to work, to make their mark.
For themselves, their families, and their communities.
And through decades of administrations, revolutions, and global changes,
we have been driven by one question.
How can we do the most good for the most people?
Because we don't believe in simply electing someone to give us the country we want to live in.
We believe in creating it.
At town hall meetings, on school boards, in state legislatures, from the halls of Congress to the Oval Office.
We are Democrats.
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 This is what we do.
This is what we have always done.
Let's go make some more history together.
All right, let's make some history together, George. What do you say?
First of all, I gotta say that last video was freaking awesome. I couldn't stop. I'm still trying to stop laughing because it was wow. And by the way, your advertisement for MyPillow, I'm not only willing to purchase another MyPillow. Notice I said another. I bought a MyPillow when they were still allowed in stores. I bought mine in Rite Aid, and I got and I still have it to this day, and it's still great. It still works wonders. I throw that sucker in the washing machine, throw it in the dryer. She fluffs up real nice, and I'm telling you, it is the best night's sleep I've ever had.
Yeah. You know, the one thing that I've occasionally heard, and that's because they have the custom fill, is I've heard some people try a MyPillow and they weren't real happy with it. And as it turns out, that just means that you don't have the right MyPillow. You can get these custom made and you can have it adjusted. But the thing that I love about MyPillow actually is the sheets. They've got some really great sheets. They've got some great mattress toppers. I've got some towels, a couple of the best towels that I've ever had among them. I'm looking at, I still haven't managed to convince myself to go ahead and spring for it, but they've had some great beach towels right now that are part of their $25 extravaganza. Right now I've got scrolling across the bottom the phone number you can call, or you can go directly to the mypillow.com/TAPP. You'll land on that particular landing page, and their best deals that are currently available are there. You can use promo code TAP and save yourself money. It'll take you to what's still being run as part of that $25 extravaganza. And then there's some stuff you can literally save up to 80% on. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm standing with Mike Lindell just because he had the gumption to stand with Donald Trump. And he won't back down. They've tried to destroy him for it. And this man is literally the personification of the American dream. He built this company after struggling through drug addiction. He had been at the bottom. He fought his way back up, and he built a company. And we're talking about the left attacking an American company, trying to destroy American jobs because this guy happens to like Donald Trump. That's the most horrible reason to try to destroy American jobs I can think of.
Well, you know, I've never had the opportunity to speak to Mike Lindell. I would love to be able to speak with that man just once. shake his hand and say, you know what, Mike, I bought your product. I love your product. What they've done, what the left has done to you is criminal. It should not have happened. It should not be happening. They talk about wanting to create jobs and everything. You've done that, and this is the thing. It's not just Mike Lindell either. There are businesses that are being crucified because they dared to put a Trump sign in their window, or they have a Trump sign in their store, or someone is wearing a Trump shirt. Now, the reason I chose the American flag shirt over my Never Surrender Trump shirt is because I wore it on my podcast last night and it's in the laundry. So can't really, can't no, wouldn't be fair. But the thing is, companies are being decimated because of this economy. They're being literally destroyed. And by the way, the jobs that they claim to be creating are not corporate jobs. They're government jobs. And when you work for the government, your money's not going into the economy necessarily. It's going right back into their pockets.
Yeah. And speaking of terrible, horrible, no good economic plans, Kamala has kind of let slip here recently what one of her plans are. She's literally looking to move into this Soviet style price control type situation. It's absolutely absurd. She's looking to try to do price controls for rent, and she's also planning on attacking grocery stores, claiming that it's price gouging that has led to the inflationary pressures and the expense that people are having to deal with. Uh, the the absurdity level of gaslighting is one thing. I mean, when we see legitimate economists going out here and trying to provide cover for the Biden Harris administration currently and anything that Kamala liar throws out there, but at the very least, I guess we can say this is something she's not lying about. She just doesn't know any better, legitimately, because she doesn't know economics. She's just taking somebody else's word for it. But here in the real world, for those of us who have to understand what it means to pay a bill, maybe meet a payroll, maybe be concerned about not just keeping your electricity on, but making sure that somebody that works with you or for you is also keeping their lights on. We know that government price controls, price fixing of any kind, never takes you down the path that they promise you that it will. But even at that, do you know, George, what the average margin that a grocery store makes off of their sales? I mean, it's less than 3%. Most range somewhere around 2 to 2.5%. It's pretty close to the margins that you see at convenience stores. So you're like, well, why are the prices so high if that's the margin? They're counting on moving a lot of product. And when the economy goes south, that's almost the only way to move volume. But there's lots of businesses out there that operate under that ideology. They hope to move a high volume so they can afford to have a lower margin per piece. Uh, it still just sounds like excuses, more smokes and mirrors, and an effort to blame everybody but who the blame belongs on. But what is your take on Kamala's economic plan as it's been revealed? What little bit that has?
Well, first of all, I heard about I was watching Newsmax and I saw the story regarding the price gouging idea that she's come up with. What that will do if that actually gets implemented, if that actually happens, what that's going to do is it's going to drive prices even higher. It's going to cause supply chain issues even more because supply and demand is going to be, people are going to hoard at the lowest price they can get, and then it's going to mean that inflation is going to go skyrocketing even higher than it already is. So this price gouging idea is the worst thing she could ever have spewed out of her pie hole. Okay. To put it simply, any of the ideas that she talks about are only going to end badly for the American people. Period. There's no way around it. You mentioned something else, and I'm sorry. Even though I'm wearing headphones, I somehow I missed the other item that you mentioned aside from the
Oh,
price gouging.
she was talking about rent control type situations as well, housing, but it still comes down to the same idea. She's still trying to blame greedy corporations and land robber barons for why Americans can't afford to pay for things. And they're ignoring the fact that no, it's actually ridiculous government spending. A lot of items that were passed early in the Biden Harris regime, in which you, Kamala, actually made the tie-breaking vote in the Senate that ended up carrying the day and put in place. And they're still bragging about the fact that we've got inflation that, while it's closer to the Fed's typical target, it's still above the target level. And they want to act like they've had some major victory. Inflation's coming down. No, inflation's still going up. It's just not going up as quickly. But eventually you get to a point where it has to stop. You can only devalue the dollar so far before it completely collapses. They want to push further. And the fact that right now the Feds are still flirting with the idea, the Fed, I should say, not the Feds, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, I should clarify, I suppose, being the host, considering that they're still flirting with still possibly lowering interest rates before the election. Now, we know that's strictly a political play. That's to try and make it look like all of a sudden the economy is booming again. Yay, Bidenomics is working, and Kamala gets part of the credit for that, and they're saving America just in time for inflation to catch fire again, but you won't see it until after the election is passed if they wait and time it just right. We know that's what's on par, but if they do that, the damage will be irreparable, and it will take that much longer for the next regime, whoever that might be, even a Trump Vance White House. It's going to take a little longer to fix the damage that they've done than it took to catch our economy back on fire before.
Well, here's the thing. You can talk about the rents and everything. What she plans to do with that. What people need to understand, for the average renter like myself, we have to deal with what's called fair market value. And if the fair market value balloons to a height where a one-bedroom apartment like mine goes for $2,500, $3,000, and only includes heat and hot water, where you got to pay for the electric yourself and so forth, the only thing that's going to do is it's going to put a lot of people out on the street. It's going to put people in a position, especially folks like myself, who are on Social Security. Okay, I'm lucky that I have Section 8 helping me, and thank God for it, because if I had to pay the rent myself, I wouldn't be able to keep the lights on, because I'd have to make a choice. Do I keep a roof over my head and skip paying the electric bill, or pay the electric bill and be out on the street? So what Kamala Harris, or Kamala, is proposing in that regard is absolute garbage, because it's only going to drive people into a financial schism so bad that by the time they realize they've been fleeced, by the time they realize that lowering the Fed wants to lower interest rates, you're right. That's a political ploy. That's just to try and get them votes. Okay. So at all that being said, the bottom line is someone needs to snap these idiots back and tell them, what are you thinking? This is not going to work. And you damn well know it. And if you can't see that, you're going to end up losing the election. And guess what? She's going to lose the election anyway, because after September 10th, it's going to be lights out. Nobody's home.
Well, again, from your lips to God's ear, I certainly hope so. But like we've already discussed, we have a legacy media that is 100% on board. They are intent on dragging her across the finish line. They've got folks up and down ballot. I don't know how far up ballot you can get, but down ballot that are counting on her having a good showing and getting people to show up and be there. It's still going to be a very interesting race, especially in the swing states. But I do think if there's an unforced error to be made, so far they've made it. In fact, Ann was talking back in the first hour about a lot of verbiage being circling around this idea of having to force Walz off the ticket and possibly even to still make a change with Kamala. And that seems like that should pretty much be impossible at this point because they went ahead and did the digital count of all the delegates that were going. So she technically is the nominee at this point. But I suppose, again, technically, until you have the convention, which is next week, anything can still happen. Everything's still on the table. All the campaigning to this point has really been about trying to position for the home stretch. And is it my imagination, Georgia, or has the election cycle evolved, especially with the advent of early voting? Has it evolved into a point where you never stop campaigning at this point?
I think it's gotten to that point, Tim, and the harsh reality is, uh, candidates are going to have to campaign and campaign right up to election day. They're going to have to push and push hard to get their point across in order to draw the voters to their side, whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Now, you mentioned early voting. Let me point something out. Some of those early ballots still had Biden's name on them, and they couldn't change them in time to correct the issue. And they can't count those votes for Biden for Harris. Legally, that's impossible. The Federal Elections Commission would come down on them like a house of cards. They would have to. Now, if you take into account that early voting, while it may be a good idea for some, I encourage people to vote in person. Do that. Don't, unless you're going on vacation, go and vote in person, because the harsh reality is, if you don't vote in person and you vote early and you do it, say, by mail, there's no guarantee your vote's going to count for the candidate you chose.
Well, I'm a fan of early voting, but it still needs to be in person. And with a lot of states actually working towards getting voter integrity things in place, places like Virginia in particular, they really did a bang-up job recently, just moving everything back to paper ballots. And we're going to have records. You're going to have this, that, the other. Voter integrity in place. They're literally having the election commissions go through the voter rolls at least once a week. They're taking dead people off. They're taking folks that have moved out of the state. They're doing everything that actually should be done by everybody, because if you believe that the elections should count, if you believe that you should defend its integrity, if you believe that the people that are voting should have their vote count equally, the way the left always says they do, but never actually do. But if you believed in that, you would want these situations put in place, because this is what allows you to verify that these results were legitimate. And this idea of making it easier and easier, I like that people can go vote. I don't want it so easy that it's impossible to tell if it's a legitimate ballot or not. And if you don't care enough to jump through a hoop or two, kind of going back to my Tap into the Truth voter apathy project, if you don't care enough to do a few simple basic things and get some understanding, then maybe you shouldn't be voting. It really just comes down to if you cared enough that you would be willing to jump through a hoop or two. I got to go get a photo ID. All right. Well, most of us already have them. And if you didn't, how are you getting through life? How do you have a bank account? How are you getting your utilities turned on? How are you doing literally anything in life without without a photo ID? Um, it's just the levels of insanity. There you go, right there, and it's impossible to stress this enough without sounding like one of those voter suppression, blah, 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 boogeymen that the leftists always say. But ultimately, I'm on board with requiring you be able to pass a basic a U.S. government test before you're allowed to vote. You need to know what the three branches of the government are. You need to know what their general roles and responsibilities are. You need to understand the difference between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. These used to be basic things that I know that you could answer blindfolded. I know just about everybody in our age group or higher can do without even. There are people with dementia that can answer those questions, but I also know a lot of people under the age of 30 that struggle with those questions. I mean, I'm not even getting to the point where I'm asking you to tell me who's your senator, who's your representative. Just tell me what the three branches of government are. And I hate to say it, and I certainly hope she's not watching tonight because she'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But I had a coworker at the day job where I used to try to ignite a little bit of passion. I would ask her questions like that. And I was so disappointed that she still struggled with some of the most basic and fun. And she's emblematic of a lot of what's going on. I do want to try to wrap up here in a little bit because I don't want to go much past the 2 hour mark for the benefit of the folks that are watching. But I do want to finish up with this thought and then let you have a chance to finish any thing you'd like to add on, George. But how do we reach the people that don't get it, that believe they have a sense of entitlement to just show up and vote however they want to, and they don't have to worry about backlash, who think that what Kamala is saying about those mean old nasty grocery store chains that are profiteering, how do we reach them and get the truth in their minds in a way that they don't reject it?
I think the basic way to do that, at least to my thinking, is just have a simple conversation with them. Tell them, if you're going into the voting booth, do you truly know the candidate you're voting for? Have you listened to both sides? Do you have an informed decision based on what Donald Trump has said, based on what Kamala Harris has said? If your decision to vote for Kamala Harris is just based on her taking no tax on tips, which was Donald Trump's idea originally to begin with, then you're voting for her for the wrong reason. If you're voting for Donald Trump because you can't stand what the Democrats have done to our country, the devastation financially, the devastation in our job markets, with our food prices, gas prices, you name it. If you're looking to Donald Trump to fix this country because he has told it plain, he's told it simple, if all you're listening to is the talking heads of the legacy media and Kamala Harris's repeat speech, because that's all it is, she reads from a teleprompter. She's reading the same exact speech at every single campaign stop she does. She doesn't vary from it. In fact, if you were to put one campaign rally on one screen and then put another one side by side, you could you hear the same exact words coming out of her mouth. So if you're voting for Kamala because of what she said and repeats, it's like wash, rinse, and repeat. No, that's not an informed voter. Vote for the person you believe has the right policies that will affect change positively in this country. If you're voting for regurgitation, then you're asking all of America to submit to a communist socialist ideal that is going to completely decimate our nation.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's way too many young folks who have been led astray into believing that socialism, communism, all forms of collectivism would be better than what we have now. And we also have a lot of folks that, they don't care to go find out who they think is the right person. They just need the freaking YouTuber or the Megan the Stallion or whoever to tell them who to vote for, and that's good
Exactly.
enough.
And if they
But
listen to somebody like Tampon Tim, who says that socialism, socialism and is neighborliness, if you're listening to that kind of garbage, you really have a problem.
yeah, well, the thing about those neighbors is they're the ones who are going to call on you when you are breaking the rules. And again, given that Tampon Tim was also one of the worst COVID-19 tyrants as far as governors across the country, he set up one of these see something, say something hotlines for you to report on your neighbors. That's the kind of neighborly thing that he's talking about. But you do need to ask yourself too, talking about Kamala stealing the no tips a bit, who's actually passed, who placed the vote that broke the tie that allowed the Biden Harris IRS to be empowered to go after the tip wage earners to pay more in taxes. And what does the legacy media have to say when Donald Trump first says it? Oh, this will cost the federal government blah, 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 billions of dollars. What do they say when Kamala steals it? Oh, well, it's a brave and stunning new idea. Yeah.
Brave
Crazy
and
stuff.
stunning new idea. Yeah, stolen from Donald Trump. Hello.
See, that was the brave part. You had the nerve to steal from Donald Trump. I have a feeling there will be a price to pay for that, too. George, real quick, let everybody know where they can find you, sir.
Well, if you're on social media, my friends, it's real simple. If you are on magabook.com, gab.com, parlor.com, and truthsocial.com, in the search box, type in at Firefox News Online. MeWe.com, it's at Firefox News Online.84. On Getter.com, it's at FFNOPNUSA. And of course, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, simply at FFNO. Now, if you're looking for me on Rumble, it's real simple. Rumble.com/the FFNOIBN. And if you add a slash after that and put the word live in there, you'll get Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, and 5 Pacific time. You will find my podcast. And if you miss it that night, one night, the next day, you can watch it in archives using that same URL.
All right. Thank you so
I
much.
also show the Trump rallies too, by the way.
Yeah. All right. I want to give you a chance to finish with any final thoughts for the evening you want to. And I also want to throw out the fact that something tells me we're going to be getting together fairly frequently for at least the remainder of the crazy season known as election season. But any final thoughts, sir?
Well, look, America, I'm going to be blunt because it's the only way I know how to be. Our country is in trouble. The Democrats have taken this country, seized it, and turned it into a third world crap hole. If you're listening to Tampon Tim and Kamala Harris, then you're listening to two people that have absolutely zero interest in safeguarding our country. making America first, and doing what's right by the American people. But if you're listening to what President Trump has been saying time and again, and remembering that July 13th, 2024, someone tried to assassinate this man. They were desperate to get rid of him. Well, guess what? He's still around. He's still fighting, and he's still looking to win. And the only way that's going to happen is we, all of us, need to go and do the right thing on November 5th, 2024. Do what's right and just, and go to the polls, vote in person. If you know somebody that's having trouble getting to the polls, help them get to the polls. Because bottom line, we've got to, it's not that we have to beat Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. We have to beat the Democrats in general. Because if they win, we all lose. And that, my friends, is the bottom line.
All right, George, as always, it's great to talk to you. Can't wait to do it again. Keep up the good work, sir. Godspeed to you.
Well, my friend, it's a pleasure being here. And like I said in your chat, anytime you want me to come back on a Thursday night, just say the word and I'm here. Because Thursday nights I don't do my podcast, so I'm wide open.
All right. Well, between that and having you on the audio version, the live show on Friday nights, I'll definitely be taking you up on that a few times in the next few weeks. In the meanwhile, we'll talk again soon.
All right. America, if you're not listening to Tim Tapp's Tap Into the Truth on audio, and if you're not watching this podcast here on Rumble, what are you doing? Tune in to Tap Into the Truth, because the truth shall set you free.
All right. Thank you for that, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. George Zenzer. All right. With that being said, time to wind things down. We've run a little long, and that's the great thing about getting to do the live streams is we've got flexibility here too. We can run a little long as long as the guests don't get antsy, and I'm just accustomed to a 2-hour time slot because of the audio show. Do want to remind everybody that audio show or streaming information there, you can find it live starting at 7 p.m. Eastern on the K-Star Talk Radio Network, on ZMA Radio, on Liberty Talk FM, and of course on the Vera Networks. That typically does include WCET FM in Columbia, South Carolina as well. Glad to have them be part of the Tap Into the Truth family. Honored to be part of their family as far as the broadcasts are concerned. But as we embark and try to build something bigger and complementary to what's happening here on Rumble, just trying to reach more audience and get some cross-pollination going on and bring you a lot of voices that are conservative and also have great platforms to speak from that maybe if you follow my show, you haven't heard from them. But I never stop talking about Ann Ubellis. I never stop talking about Ron Edwards. I never stop talking about Don Smith. And I often talk about George Zenzer as well. These guys, they're on the front lines. They have been for a while, and they're not conservatives because they're rich and hoity-toity, because I know I'm not. I know they're not. They're conservatives because they believe in the Constitution. They're conservatives because they believe in what makes America special. And it's not the government. It's not even the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, which are great, phenomenal documents inspired by God. But what makes America great, and will make her great again under the right circumstance, is her people. You guys. The ones that agree with me, the ones who don't. I oftentimes share a picture in the over on the Blog Talk when I upload the audio shows over there that states, and I think I've even got it in the placeholder for the Rumble show before we go live. It says, I don't want you to think like me. I just want you to think. That's all that's required, because as long as you are engaging in critical thought, you're going to be okay. You're going to start seeing through the propaganda. You're going to see that the mainstream I guess, again, I shouldn't call them mainstream anymore. They're really not. The legacy media is nothing more than propaganda. And it doesn't matter which version it's become entertainment. It's become bias confirmation, and real information is harder and harder to find. And in fact, the best way to cut through the BS is to listen to people like me and George and me and Annie and me and Ron when we get together and we have our conversations, because we deal with the facts. And then, unlike the legacy media, we don't pretend to be unbiased and then still try to convince you that you should engage in left-wing propaganda thinking. We tell you, we're conservatives. This is what we believe. This is what we believe. This is why. We'll lay out the case. And we'll invite you to try to poke a hole in our logic. And you know what? The great thing about everybody I just mentioned, and a majority of the guests you're going to see on this show, is the fact that if you bring forth new information, something that is worth listening to, something that will change a mind, you'll see us change our positions. However, if you have been brainwashed, if you have been indoctrinated and you think you have earth-shattering new evidence, if you're going to show up at my show and try to talk about the 1618 project, the 1619 project, if you're going to try to tell me that the founding of this nation is based on blah, 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 rotten to the core, that's not earth-changing. That's not mind-changing. That is propaganda. Propaganda. It's lies. But I'm prepared to talk to you and show you how and why. And if you'll listen, we'll still find some common ground. That's going to have to be it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're watching later rather than as part of the live feed, glad to have you here too. Remember, support the show by supporting our sponsors. We've got mypillow.com. Be sure to use promo code TAPP, T-A-P-P. And do not forget to call my friends over at Harvard Gold Group. That's 1-844-977-GOLD. That's 844-977-4653. Mention Tap Into the Truth. That'll get you an automatic $250 discount if you decide to make a purchase. But all I'm asking you to do is give them a call, ask for their free investor's guide, ask them any other questions you've got about precious metals. If you haven't been paying attention to the efforts to devalue the dollar, you're already behind the curve. You need to protect yourself. So whether you're looking to protect your retirement or you just want to have some gold in hand, Harvard Gold Group is the way to go. That's it. Thank you for being here. And remember, don't take my word for it. Definitely don't take their word for it. Be prepared to put in some effort, and most importantly, use your brain if you really want to tap into the truth. Good night, everybody.
Since 2000, your dollar has declined 40% in purchasing power, while gold is up 700%. As the country's debt burden soars, you need to protect your retirement with the hedging power of gold. Harvard Gold Group is America's #1 gold company focused on helping you secure your future. Call Harvard Gold Group, 844-977-GOLD, or at harvardgoldgroup.com to get a free investment guide to see how you can roll over retirement accounts to a gold-backed IRA. That's harvardgoldgroup.com or 844-977-GOLD.
Hello, Americans. Tim Tapp here again for the Tap Into the Truth Voter Apathy Project. Are you someone that believes that taking guns away from law-abiding citizens makes America safer? Do you believe that fewer police in the communities that are suffering from the highest rates of crime is a good idea? Do you believe that Hollywood celebrities are so much smarter than the rest of us that we should listen to what they have to say and live our lives the way they want us to? Then congratulations. You've got what it takes to be part of the Voter Apathy Project. You've already demonstrated that you don't care enough to understand why the framers created the Second Amendment in the first place. You've also demonstrated that you don't care enough to understand crime statistics and why they matter. And You've also demonstrated that you're simply not willing to think for yourself. So, if you said yes to any of those questions, maybe instead of going to go vote, you should just go watch another movie. This has been Tim Tapp reminding you that if you don't care enough to tap into the truth, you should just stay home on Election Day.